and welcome back to another episode of the Cardboard Herald, my chance to talk with creative gamers and game creators. And today I'm so happy that I am joined by Maggie Clayton of Greater Than Games, the marketing and social media manager. Welcome to the show, Maggie.
Happy to be here, Jack.
Yeah, well, this is cool because we've coordinated quite a bit in various projects and things that we've worked on. Of course, I'm doing reviews and I got a chance to check out some of the new stuff that Greater Than Games has going on. But I'm just thrilled that I get a chance to talk to someone on the inside, not just a designer, not just someone who is a company owner or you know, this is a vital role within the industry that I don't think I've had the chance to just sit down and have a long form interview with a social media manager or marketing person, or however you define your role.
It's interesting for me too, because it's definitely not something that I'm used to doing, but it is something that I love to do. I love to talk about our work, and my strengths are actually in marketing more than social media, although I do both and I love both. I started off in marketing, so calling me a marketing person would be okay.
Okay, cool. Well, I've worked in government for the majority of my life, and then in the Cardboard Herald, I just do everything, and I'm kind of making it up as I go along. So I don't actually know really in any connotation, and especially within the connotation of board games, what does a marketing person do for a company, or at least what does one do for Greater Than Games?
So for Greater Than Games, I'm in charge of all of their social media, which includes creating posts, making videos with our videographer, who is amazing, and responding to some comments and questions and things like that. Honestly, right now I'm handling quite a bit of customer service because we're hiring a customer service manager. She actually starts next week. We're super excited to have her. I also handle any conventions that we go to. I handle the coordination for that because the majority of our spend when it comes to marketing is conventions, as you can imagine. And of course, anything that we have in-house graphic designers. We have 2 graphic designers on our team that our creative director manages. And so we handle that all ourselves, which is a little bit unique. Sometimes that is not how it works out when we have smaller companies. And that saves us spend in other places. So a lot of stuff goes towards marketing at those conventions, which is all in my wheelhouse. And I also do our library donations, anything like that. It varies a lot. It changes day to day in a way, but that's mostly what it is.
When you're in small business, you wear a lot of hats. I guess I should get some appropriate nomenclature down here. Greater Than Games and Dice Hate Me merged, or what's the deal? Just so we're starting from a good basis here. Are these one and the same company? Are they just partners and they're under the same umbrella ownership but operate as 2 different companies?
So Dice Hate Me Studio is a studio underneath Greater Than Games. So in 2015, we acquired Dice Hate Me Studio and all of their catalog, and with it, the amazing owner, Chris Kirkman, who is also a game designer, and he is in charge of the Dice Hate Me Studio. So it kind of operates like a separate entity in a lot of ways, but we're all within the Greater Than Games family. So he handles a lot of he will handle his own design projects, but we all get together to play test them. And we have weekly meetings to go over all of the projects that are on our side and on his side so that we all know what's going on and we contribute to both.
Are they in St. Louis as well?
So Chris Kirkman is a one-man team. So there's only one person technically in the Dice Hate Me studio, and he is located in North Carolina or South Carolina, but I'm pretty sure it's North Carolina. He's actually a professor as well as a board game designer and owner of a board game, or part owner of a board game publisher.
That's cool. It's really amazing the multitude of skills and disciplines that are involved in this hobby, because so many people are doing this as like their part-time gig or their side thing that they're aspiring to make their full-time thing. Now, the reason why I asked about St. Louis is because it seems like that is becoming a hotbed for game design, game development, and game publishing. I mean, you got you guys, and then Stonemaier Games, of course, and Grave Fox Games are there. Like, what do you think it is about St. Louis that just made it kind of like the scene of the up-and-comers over the last what, 6 or so years?
So yeah, there's about, I think there's 6 companies here officially, and as well as a lot of game designers that are now locating here. And I think that it has a lot to do with the price of owning a business, and that it is far cheaper to own a business and operate a business in St. Louis than a lot of other major cities. So if you want to stay in a major city and still operate as a functional company, it's a lot cheaper to do it here than it is to do it
in Juneau, Alaska.
In Juneau, Alaska. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, now that we got kind of the baseline and I got a better understanding of the whole Dice Hate Me GTG thing, Greater Than Games has gone in a few short years from being the little guys with this little cult superhero game into like a beloved and established, not owned by Asmodee company in the gaming space. How did you get wrapped up in Greater Than Games?
I guess it's been a year now. At a B2B show, we met each other while I was demoing games for them, actually. And they were thinking to themselves, man, we should really hire a social media manager. We're growing at such a good rate with the love for Spirit Island and everything like that we really need to add more people to our team. And I just so happened to be assigned a demo with them through the Envoy program, which is a program where people get set up with demoing to different companies or different publishers if they need a demoer.
Yeah, I just talked with Envoy for our own Platypus Con here in Juneau for some projects that we're working on for that convention. So this is timely. I just learned who Envoy was maybe a month ago.
Awesome. That's excellent. Yeah. So they hooked me up with Greater Than Games just by chance, and Greater Than Games happened to be hiring for a position that I was qualified for. So then we kind of courted each other for about 3 to 4 months. We met in September, and I was officially hired in December of 2018. Yeah. No, 2019 or 2017. I'm so bad at dates.
I was going to say December 2019. They got some mysterious technology going on over there in St. Louis that we're not up to speed with yet in Juneau.
Yeah. No, I'm just bad at dates, I guess. But yeah, so I happen to have a skill set that they needed and a passion for board games. So it worked out really well for both of us. Kind of lucky, but also just perfect.
It worked out. Where did your passion for board games come from? Did you grow up with games? Did they get introduced to you later on? I mean, obviously you had the skills to be a marketing and social media manager apart from your desire to play board games. But where did those come in?
So as a kid, we always played board games, and it was like Clue and Boulder Dash and some lighter family games like that. Nothing too serious, but I'm actually from Indianapolis. So as you well know, Indianapolis is home to one of the biggest board game convention in North America, one of the biggest board game conventions in the world, Gen Con. So I was going to Gen Con as a 16-year-old who really liked comic books and other nerdy things, not even knowing that it was the biggest board game convention in North America at the time. And I just kept going. So I think I'm on my 10th year almost. I don't know. I've been going for a long time to Gen Con, and that's kind of what stemmed it all. That and college board gaming groups and things like that.
Yeah, totally. And I know the feeling of just being kind of in general into geeky stuff and getting this kind of crossover exposure to all kinds of different niches within the hobby and different interests and different hobbies, period. I grew up in Alaska, of course, and here everything is so consolidated that you have to have alliances of nerddom in order to have anything actually get going. So the anime kids are always hanging out with the comic book kids, who are always hanging out with the board game kids and the Dungeons and Dragons kids, and they're all crossing over, and you just get this wonderful amalgamation of exposure to all things nerdy. And the hunger for that stuff just exposes you to so much awesome media of all types. I know that's where I cut my teeth on a lot of things that ended up getting involved in the various things that I do with the Cardboard Herald now. Yeah,
that's a very similar thing for me. I didn't grow up in quite as rural an area probably, but I grew up in the middle of nowhere, Indiana, and so it definitely stemmed from we had to hang out with each other if we wanted to have friends.
Yeah.
And then Gen Con, I was just fortunate enough to be this, silly kid who stumbled upon this great thing. And from there, it just grew.
Do you feel like the incredible popularity of Spirit Island that's kind of dominated just the board game space in the last 2 years, if it's altered the trajectory of Greater Than Games in any way other than just bringing a bunch of new cash through the door?
Yeah, I think that it has, because it really started off, and you can ask any of the owners here, it started off as a love project. They just loved the game. They actually they thought that it would do okay, but that no one would love it as much as they did.
They were very wrong.
Yeah, I think that they found that that's not true. And so because of that, they did not think that it would be as big of a success as it was. And we're all very grateful for it, and for all of the supporters that continue to wow us every day on social media and everything else with different ways that they've tweaked the game, including sock puppets from someone I know. So it definitely changed the trajectory of the company. It allowed us to grow at a faster rate than we thought we would. It's probably part of the reason that I have a job, if we're being very honest. So it allowed us to hire more people. It's allowed us to consider, we can think 2 or 3 years down the line instead of a year down the line, is what I think. That's how I feel like it's changed the company.
It's an amazing game, but it's an amazing story for Greater Than Games too. And that cult status of Sentinels of the Multiverse definitely holds strong, and people are really excited about it. And you guys have a bunch of stuff going on with a bunch of different genres and themes and types of games. And it's exciting to see you branching out into new areas and not just fully going hard into the Spirit Island game. That said, you did just complete the Kickstarter for Jagged Earth, which, congratulations on funding like 1 billion times over. And I know that Greater Than Games receives overwhelming support for these projects, but I've also heard plenty of chatter on the internet, which always happens when a company grows to a certain point, that, people say Kickstarter is there for the little guys. What's an established company doing on Kickstarter? And, they're drawing all the attention to them, and they're making it so there's less exposure to others, less attention. People only have so much in their Kickstarter budget that they're going to be backing a certain number of games. And can you speak to why Greater Than Games, with this overwhelming success of Spirit Island, still feel that going to Kickstarter is the route that they should go? And if you anticipate that your future projects will go to Kickstarter?
So I can say that some of our future products won't go to Kickstarter. It's going to be a whole new experience for us to go direct to market. Not every game will be like that. There are some games that we still feel fit that Kickstarter niche, where we need to see them tried and true, almost is the way that I would put it. We need to see the desire for it before we can really commit to something. And that's how it is. That's what Kickstarter is for. As far as detracting from the little guys, what we try to do, and what I strongly encourage a lot of people to do, is making sure you're not we will never put 10 projects on Kickstarter at a time. For a lot of reasons. One, because it will detract from the little guys. We're putting out 10 Spirit Island expansions, which we are not.
I was about to say, give me all the hot scoops. I want them right now. Name all 10 of the expansions and what I can anticipate out of them.
So, if we were to do that, and we were to do that, year after year, that would be so brutally unfair. It would be unfair to Spirit Island. It wouldn't do the game justice the way that it needs to be done. We wouldn't be giving it enough attention if we were churning out stuff that fast. But also, it's not fair to our consumers. Our fans have a budget, and I don't want to, and my company doesn't want to ask you to spend $1 zillion every year through Kickstarter projects, because otherwise you won't get the thing that you want. So one, we try and space out our projects. And I think that helps not only our fans, but also our what's the word? Our professional partners, our everyone else in the industry. It helps if we're all not throwing a bunch of games out at once. And we also, it helps us, we're still, we might be a bigger guy, but we're still only 15 people. It's a lot to do all of that. And it really, it teaches you, like, it's how a business should run, in my opinion, because it avoids cannibalizing each other or the marketplace or the consumers. You really got to space yourself out, or you're not doing your games justice.
Do you feel that at a certain point a company gets to be big enough that it's almost exploitative to utilize Kickstarter? I mean, you're asking the consumer to pay for a product that hasn't even begun being manufactured yet. It hasn't been reviewed properly yet in its finished state. I mean, of course, you guys are still this small company in spite of how many copies of Spirit Island are out there. But I mean, what if Wizards of the Coast started kickstarting their new Magic sets? What if Asmodee started kickstarting every new Days of Wonder project? Like, do you see it as something that a company should naturally taper off on Kickstarter eventually? And is that because of just the logistics, or is there an ethical component to that as well?
I do think that there probably is a point where a company should taper off, especially when it comes to somebody who, Magic has, I don't even know how many Magic cards exist to this day. Like, I will never know that, but I'm sure it is a known number, but it's a lot. And so that would be, it would not behoove them to do that for many reasons. And one of them would be an ethical reason, because it is unfair to the consumer. I think that it's a little trickier when it's not something that we're talking about expansions for. When we're talking about new projects, it can vary. But ultimately, yes, like if Hasbro was kickstarting every project, that would be something that I would think is not acceptable. But I can't tell you when I think that tapering off point is.
It's kind of like the Supreme Court decision about, what is it, like vulgarity or indecency or something. It's like, I can't describe it, but I know it when I see it.
Yes, exactly. I will feel it in my bones when I know that it's time to start tapering off. And the other thing that our company tries to avoid, and I've seen a lot of companies that try and avoid this, is we don't do Kickstarter exclusives for the fact of we're a big company and we know that Spirit Island or Sentinels in the Multiverse, like, people want all of those products. So we're not going to make it a Kickstarter exclusive, because we don't expect you to have money in the 30 days that it is Kickstarting, or the so many months after that it's on BackerKit. We understand that that's just not how things work. So we don't do Kickstarter exclusives. And I've seen a lot of companies that are leaning towards that it doesn't necessarily behoove you, especially as you get larger, to do that.
One thing that I noticed at PAX Unplugged is that there does seem to be an ethical awareness to Greater Than Games. Like, it seems like you spend time in considering what type of company you want to be, the presentation that you have, and what your involvement in the world is, and not from a cold business standpoint, but as far as, like, you want to be proud of the company that you work for and the ethical decisions that you make, and how you acknowledge the identity of gamers out there, how you encourage positivity and support. Is that something that you've noticed has been like almost a pushback against some negative aspects of the hobby, or even negative aspects of our nation in the last couple of years? Or is that something that you think has been at the forefront of Greater Than Games since its foundation?
I'd say that it's at the forefront of Greater Than Games since its foundation, but also with the caveat of it becomes easier to do what you think is the right thing as a company the bigger that you get, the more comfortable you are in doing something. It can be scary as a little guy to go out and make a big statement. And we're not a little guy anymore. So we definitely, within the last year that I was hired, we made conscious choices and things to participate in that we felt strongly about. For example, for for March, for Women's Month, we highlighted a woman every single day of the month that was in board game design or art, or an artist or somewhere in the industry. And we participated in Girl Behind the Game, which is a social media, they're a social media movement, sort of, but also they're a company that exists that decided that they wanted to do that. And so we took over their Twitter for a day, 24 hours exactly. And I was up the whole 24 hours, I feel like, because that was something that we felt strongly about. And it's the same reason that we have diversity ribbons in our booth. It's the same reason that we do all of what we do, is because we care. And we're at a point where we can care and not be afraid of whatever pushback might exist in the world.
Is there a conscious decision in how you create your games when you're looking at like the diversity of representation that's in a certain product? Like, are you looking at, say, homebrewers and saying, you know, we really should have more people of color in this, or we should have gender parity? Does that actually factor into the decisions in the presentation of the games themselves?
To an extent. So we also we want our games to reflect what the world is. Mm-hmm. And if they're not doing that, then who are they for? We don't create things in a bubble. So we try really hard to make sure that our games are just accurately representing the world around us. And we pull from a lot of different things for that. You know, we put it in front of playtesters. We ask people what they're not seeing and what they wish they were seeing. We put it in front of our friends who don't play board games so that they can say, hey, that was really weird that there's no girls in this, and I hated that, if that happens, or something like that. So we just try and make sure that we're giving it everything that we can before we put a product out in the market. So there are like little nods that we do specifically on purpose to different things. So like Charlie in Homebrewers, they don't have the cards for them. Their flavor script doesn't have anything to do with gender, because they are whatever you want them to be. They are the AI of the game, and like that is how we intended it to be. That's how I wrote part of that little bit. So did the designer. Not to discredit anything from Ben, but I wrote part of that, and I wrote it intentionally without possessive plurals, because I wanted people to do with what they would with that.
Right.
And something that we could do. And it wasn't forced per se, but it is something that like I did that intentionally. We did that intentionally. Well,
I know I, for one, as both a gamer and as a parent, I really appreciate that. I don't think that my son is dealing with any gender issues right now in toddlerhood, but I know that just I'm opened up to this world of marketing that I never really consciously paid attention to, where I'm looking at things like Paw Patrol, you know, like he's just getting into this cartoon Paw Patrol, and there's all these characters in it. And his favorite is the helicopter pilot, who happens to be a girl, right? It's Sky. Take to the Sky. Like, he's all about Sky. And she's dressed in pink and whatever. And I'm all about it. You know, Sky's your favorite. We'll pretend we're Sky all the time. But I try looking for a lunchbox for him to bring to school, to his preschool. And the boy colored lunchboxes, which he wants one that's red and blue. He was so disappointed that Sky isn't on it. It has only the boys on it. I was just like, I don't know what the answer is. I don't even know what my point is really in saying this, other than I have realized that there is still a lot of backwards marketing in the world that makes a lot of assumptions about what people are supposed to enjoy in a game based off of they want things that just look like themselves, or maybe look like what companies assume that their audiences are, when people of all types want to see people of all types, even if it's not who they are. And it's especially important for people to be able to see who they are in the products that they're getting out there, or at least it's commendable when that's available to them. So Yeah, I don't know. Some of the questions that I was asking are spurred by my experience of working with you guys at PAX and just seeing like your inclusion, the efforts to be an ally to LGBTQ people in the gaming industry and the hobby, and also because I've noticed that there's at least a distinct better ratio of representation in Greater Than Games than in many of the other games that are available. So I just was wondering if that was a conscious thing, because if it is, then that's cool. And it sounds like it's something that you guys care a great deal about. But let's back out of this really light and easy to answer topic here and get back to some of your role at Greater Than Games. Like, what motivates you on a day-to-day basis? Like, what makes you feel really good about your job? Like, you're being successful, like you're doing what you're supposed to do, and is like personally fulfilling to you?
So it varies depending on the day is part of it. I've done a lot of customer service lately, so if I can make one person happy, that means the world to me, especially when we're dealing with Kickstarter fulfillment and things like that. That feels really great because you're getting that immediate gratification of, oh, thank you very much, blah, blah, something like that. I'm not going to lie, I love it. But sometimes it's writing a Kickstarter update and knowing that it was just like a really good update and that I had a lot of good information in there and that I was highlighting it in the right way. Sometimes it's planning out a campaign and seeing everyone in my office be like, yeah, that's really cool. That's exactly how we wanted that to be represented. And knowing that I brought their idea to life the right way. Because I kind of feel like that's a lot of what marketing is you made a board game and I can see what that board game is doing, but how do I make sure everyone else is? And part of it is bringing that to life and kind of making people believe in us a little bit. So my job is actually really gratifying in the fact that I can see on social media when people like us and when people don't and things like that. So it's a lot of little things.
What's a challenge that you have to face that people might not expect as part of your regular job? Just something that is kind of something that you've had to get used to and is maybe it's something that you become an expert at since going on to Greater Than Games. Like, I think there's a lot of people out there who are really curious about the machinations of the board game industry. There's a lot of people who listen to this podcast who are designers. There's lots of people who are aspiring publishers who may even have existing small companies at this point who want to grow. What are some of the challenges that you face that you think other people might be interested in but don't even know you have to deal with them?
Well, there's always the challenge of not enough time in a day, but I'm pretty sure everyone feels that way. I have gotten really good at project management. I'm not, by no means am I a project manager, but I've gotten much better at it than I ever thought that I would in terms of, hey, where's this game at? What's going on with it? Who's doing what? Where is it? Whose hands are on it right now? Keeping track of things like that is not something that I initially thought that I would be doing when I started at this job. And it's not something that I it is just something that I never consider in life, that there are people who whole job is to manage something and you need them. Like a lot of companies could benefit from a project manager. At our company, there are probably 5 or 6 of us that make up project managers, even though that's not exactly what we're doing every day in our day to day. But having somebody who's kind of focused on one game and Spirit Island, that's my baby this week. I'm project managing it. I'm seeing where it's at. I'm seeing who's playtesting it. I'm seeing who's writing the next update. I'm seeing where we are in the art process, what our projection timeline is like now, and things like that. Project management is a huge thing that I think people don't necessarily consider when you're in a smaller company. Crisis management is another thing that I think people don't consider. Not that we run into a whole lot of crises. It kind of depends on what you define as a crisis too. But being cool under pressure, which just happens to be one of absolute zeros powers. But being cool under pressure is a huge deal because you might be at a convention and 20 things are going wrong, but a fan's coming up to you and he's asking you about his favorite game. I want to be able to be the person that is still capable of answering those questions and being cheerful, even though I'm thinking about 20 other things that are definitely blowing up behind me. And that is something that I've always just been skilled at because I come from a large family where things blow up frequently. But it's something that is increasingly important because when you're a small business, there's 3 of you at a convention, and those are the 3 of you that are doing everything else too. So project management, crisis management, some PR and social media. Obviously, that's my job, so it's easy for me to say, like, that's what you should think about because I do that. But it is really important, more important than most companies think, to have that good personal presence so that people know, I'm not just a company. I'm Jack, and I do this thing, and I'm really fun, and like I make sock puppets. That's your stick, or whatever. That it's important for people to know who you are because that's the type of consumerism we have now. People get to choose what they're consuming, and if there's 10 other people out there doing the same thing as you, why would they pick you? Because they know you, because they like you, and they like what you do. So being able to have that personal edge is really important, and I think that it used to get discredited a lot, and I think it's starting to be more understood.
What about international distribution and communication? I mean, I know in my job, I sometimes have to break out translators to get certain points across or help people and things that they need, or even to understand like laws and regulations of other countries. With so many gamers across the world, you have distribution, manufacturing, translation. Heck, I mean, your marketing and social media exists pervasive around the world. So, are you involved in international marketing or international social media work, or do you just handle things that are the English speaking greater than games portion?
So we obviously have international gamers who consume products that come directly from greater than games, but we're also big proponents for localization. So we will localize a game in another language, and that publisher will then take on the responsibility of marketing it. And it's not only because it's much easier for them to market to their audience, but also because bandwidth. I want to be a better marketer for the international demographic. I really do, and we're trying. But it becomes difficult when it would be great if I could live stream when it was 6 p.m. in England, but it's not 6 p.m. here, and that becomes difficult for us. But as we grow, I'm sure we'll be able to be more, as far as our social media goes and our marketing goes, we'll be more international friendly. And I do interact with a lot of our international audience through Kickstarter comments, through the social media things, but not as much as I wish I could. If I'm being totally honest, I want to step up that side of things, but part of that is growing the team a little bit more. And that is a slow build, but it will happen. As far as international distribution, it's an interesting thing that we have had, that we've always been dealing with. And it's been difficult at times, but we've made a lot of really good friends. We use a fulfillment center in England called Spiral Galaxy, and they've been very useful in our last few Kickstarters, and they will continue to be very useful. But it's been difficult, especially with shipping laws and VAT and things like that. I mean, I just yesterday, because Spirit Island, the backer kit is officially live. We sent out the rest of the survey, so it should be live now. It might not be totally live until tomorrow morning, but it should be. And so there's going to be a lot of people who have questions about VAT and shipping and what they're being charged for and how that works. And I have quickly educated myself on exactly how to do the math for different places for VAT, because I don't like people having to struggle with it themselves. And if I can help them in any way, I will. And that's just how our company is. I mean, Paul, the CEO, made a chart that tells you exactly what the VAT is for not all of the European countries, but a lot of the European countries, just because it's a little bit easier. It's that much easier if you can see exactly what's happening. But it's still always difficult because of different things like different laws, language barriers, anything like that. And we all try to make a conscious effort to step it up. But it's a bandwidth type of situation sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you brought up Spirit Island, so I just have to ask, are you guys still on track for delivery of Jagged Earth and release in May 2020? Is that right?
Yes, it is May 2020, and we are still on track. We have more art pouring in every day, which is great, and there's still playtesting going on a little bit. We actually just had our January 1st update, went out on January 1st, and it was a big breakdown of where everything's at in the playtesting process from Eric, the designer, and everything is still on track for it and still coming through beautifully. It's definitely a process, but it's working out.
Old Spirit Island or new Spirit Island, what is your favorite spirit?
Oh, that's such a hard question. This is bad because I want to call it Fire Puppy, and it's not. It's Heart of the Wildfire. No, yep. I call him Fire Puppy. It's not an official term, but
it will be from now on. I've made it canon. It is now Fire Puppy. It shall forever be Fire Puppy, and no one shall ever refer to it as anything else. I'd like an official errata to come out by Greater Than Games. Our Eric Royce will support it, and it shall be a bannable offense if at any organized event you shall refer to it as anything but Fire Puppy. So I expect that of all the audience out there from now on. Fire Puppy, tweet it at Greater Than Games, tweet it at me. We need Fire Puppy to catch on.
So yeah, that is probably my favorite. I also like Lightning Swift Strike because I like to do things fast, and slow powers bug me. I'm a little too aggressive in the way that I play. That's what I'll say about it. It is my favorite cooperative game, and I don't like cooperative games that much, which is like a sin to say at Greater Than Games because we are mostly cooperative gamers, except for me, probably.
Well, it's almost like it's the number 2 greatest game ever made, or at least according to the Cardboard Herald.
Yes.
Well, let's get to just what some of the things that you guys have going on in the future, because I would be remiss if we didn't hit on that. So, like, what is the next year's plans that you're comfortable sharing? I mean, you mentioned earlier you're planning out like 3 years at a time now. So what can people expect on the horizon from Greater Than Games? And is there anything that you'd think that the public might not already be aware of that you really want to get them looking forward to in the future?
So the next biggest project that's coming up is going to be on January 29th. The Sentinel Comics RPG Kickstarter launches January 29th. And it is a Kickstarter for the core rulebook of Sentinel Comics, the role-playing game. So we've had a starter kit that came out 2 years ago now at Gen Con, and then we have 2 one-off adventures that exist to kind of give people a flavor for how the system works for the RPG, because it's different. And now the core rulebook will come out, and I expect big things, but it's also our first time doing a book, doing an RPG, doing all of this stuff. It's a lot of firsts for us. So it's a little nerve-wracking, but we're very excited, and I can say without a doubt some of the best art I've ever seen is coming out of this game and this rule book. And then we'll have Homebrewers and Legends of Sleepy Hollow that both come out this year. And those are beautiful games as well, different styles. Legends of Sleepy Hollow is gorgeous and definitely a very unique game. If you haven't checked it out yet, it is still live on BackerKit. All of the art is very gothic and a little creepy, but in a good way, because it follows the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which is not a creepy story. And then Homebrewers, which you mentioned earlier, is our very diverse homebrewing game that'll come out this year.
When are we getting Medium? Because the Storm Chaser game people just blew my mind when I was there. That was like one of my highlights of the convention, was checking out that game and meeting the two of them. They were awesome.
So I cannot give the official word on when exactly we expect it out, but it will come out this year is our plan right now. And it will go direct to retail, so it's not going to be on Kickstarter, but you can see it at conventions going forward. I will have it at every convention this year just to get it out in front of people so that we keep that buzz going, because it is the most unique party game that I've ever played, I think, maybe. I was shown it last year at Origins, and I still continue to love playing it and think it's hilarious and just amazing. Also, it's got that little psychic vibe going off of it, and I appreciate anything a little bit spooky or something.
Yeah, a little ephemeral, a little bit weird and spiritual in a way, but a little spooky, but not actually scary in any way. That game blew me away. It blew my mind how strategic it was, while at the same time being a laugh out loud party game. It's not a quiet game by any means, like Codenames can occasionally be, and I love Codenames, but it still has that mental stimulus. It has a strategic edge. There's this like honing of minds working together, where you're sharpening the intuitive connection that you're making with your partner. It is unlike any game that I've ever played. If anyone listening to this wants to check that out, there's probably plenty of stuff online. I have a video that's an interview actually at the Greater Than Games booth, the demo area, I should say, where I talk with the designers who are a part of Storm Chaser Games. They have their design studio. This is their first gig, and it is a killer debut. There's like 5 seconds of weird audio in that. You can work around it. It's fine. Most of it is like pristine. Wow, perfect. There's always technical difficulties when you're filming live. But yeah, that game is amazing. And in spite of looking forward to the Sentinels RPG, in spite of looking forward to Jagged Earth with like bated breath, in spite of looking forward to Homebrewers and Sleepy Hollow, that medium game, man, like, sometimes I just find myself thinking about it, and I think that's going to really make a big impression on a lot of people. So you guys got something special there.
Yes, I 100% agree. And you're right. I actually find myself thinking about it a lot too. That's the game that I'm taking to the board game design retreat that I'm going to this weekend, where there will be several board game designers from all around the U.S. at. I will take it there and make them all play it and laugh with me. That's the plan. And then we also, we have in the works a few children games, actually, that I can't talk about too much because we're still speaking with the designer about it, but we are very excited. They're a really amazing team, and it's already proven to be a successful game, is what I can say. So I'm excited to bring it over to our audiences.
Please tell me Spirit Island Jr. is in the works.
Oh, man. I don't think that your kid's ready for that yet. No offense. Even if we can make that, I'm pretty sure it's going to be at least like a 10-year-old level. Like, I don't know how much you can tune it down.
I think you guys could partner with Haba to come up with something. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. All right.
Yeah, well, Haba at me.
yeah, exactly. Man, with some of the adorable little chunky components I make, just imagine Shadows Flicker Like Flame and, some of those Haba styles. You guys would have a field day with that. All right. Well, Maggie, I really appreciate you coming on to the show. I appreciate you supporting the Cardboard Herald by giving us, some chances to look at some real early stuff that you've had. And I just really appreciate all that Greater Than Games is doing in this space, creating some really interesting and creative stuff and your role within that. So thanks so much for coming on the show, Maggie.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Cardboard Herald. As always, everything we do is ad-free and audience-supported. If you'd like to help keep it that way, find the Patreon link at the top of our webpage, cardboardherald.com. We have several levels of support with various rewards. If you enjoyed the show, we do a whole bunch of other stuff, including reviews, interviews, and recommendations across writing, podcasts, and video. You can find that on our YouTube channel or by visiting any of our social media or our website. So with that out of the way, thank you again for listening to the Cardboard Herald.